Hello, world. Um, this is Ryan. Ryan, world. World, meet Megan Elizabeth. Unless you probably already know Megan Elizabeth. She is in the upper right corner of your screen in a box. She doesn't know she's there, what she looks like on YouTube. Um, but there you go. Welcome to this iteration, and I don't even say episode, we're not episodic, of the Intuitive Network Thursday Gatherings here on in the Purple Squirrel Cafe on multiple platforms, on Zoom for private use, Telegram for exclusive use, and for those of you out there in the general public and the special public, you are watching us on YouTube, Facebook, and or LinkedIn. So welcome to all of you for an intuitive discussion and a dive into Megan Elizabeth's brain, heart, soul, spirit, and whatever piece of herself she wishes to share in this space. And we're going to get rolling. Megan Elizabeth, do you want to say anything before I turn our Zoom meeting on YouTube?
I'm here. We exist. It's successful. I'm very happy.
All right. Well, here goes nothing. Here goes everything. So, and you are there. And I am here. I am yours, you are mine, we are what we are. Show self view in the gallery. Ah, there we go. All right. Now I need to think of a question for you. So the other day, I was in a quandary. We're talking about. Well, I don't know we're necessarily. You would express something to me, and that I felt the desire to want to share something with the public about kind of an idea of sometimes just being there is enough. Sometimes just being in a space and being available is enough. Because you said to me many times that with the Intuitive Network, just the presence of people who are connected elsewhere is nourishing, is important, and it gives life to you. So, and maybe you can say a bit what that feels like from your perspective to have the difference. But anyway, I'm doing this. I wanted to say something on LinkedIn about this place here, what it is to come here and join us, and then join Telegram and join all this stuff. And I was like, which link do I share? Hey, what's there in the background?
It just started raining a lot, and there's this cascade of raindrops coming behind the window. And I look back, I was like, it's not coming in, is it? And it's not. It's just really loud. But I thought, wow, maybe everything behind me is getting all wet, and I should.
Well, if it would. Well, I would have got it first if it was going east to west or west to east.
So you were talking about relationship.
Yeah. So what I was right, I was going to share. You had shared a situation with me, and I wanted to invite more people into the space, kind of to scaffold them in from the LinkedIn verse to the Facebook verse or whatever verse. And I wanted to have a very, very single place for them to go. And I think that's where to ask what's the first place, the easiest place for the 0 to 1 place for someone who, if a normie like me or a proto-normie or a pseudo-normie wants to invite other folks and say, this is a place where you can be, and you're just being here will be a gift, and it will help. So what would that place be? Would there be one place or more?
I wouldn't say that there would be only one place for everyone in that situation, but a really good start is the Purple Squirrel Cafe.
Okay.
The differentiator is, where do we have the best opportunity to practice being in true relationships with one another? So there's a difference between just showing up and saying, like, I'm here, and being attuned and caring and noticing the living beings around you and noticing how you are in relationship with them already, and being interested in the integrity of those relationships. The practicing of that has powerful ramifications in solving any problem that may be going on, in meeting any challenge, in implementing any solution. And so what we usually say is we direct people to Intuitive Social Duo, and we get them in contact with me. And then there are a variety of different groups in the network that somebody might be interested in or well suited for. Or if they're not, like if there isn't a group right now that would be right for them, then me and that person will stay in contact, or we will create it. We're creating gathering opportunities here on Purple Squirrel TV and Intuitive Public TV, and also like private conversations. So like there are these different versions of that we can do depending on what somebody needs in order to make that connection.
Yeah. And I like how you frame that sometimes if showing up in the room and just looking around and being, what the hell is this, is different than being open to, I care about who's here, and you know, what do I say in my Telegram? What's Telegram? I don't know what Telegram is. And it's like, well, maybe I think from my perspective as an inviter, right? So I want to invite more people into the network to provide energy and relationship invitations to the folks who when hearing that invitation will respond and engage in relationship. So what comes to me when you say this is maybe there's a storytelling for me that, or for me, or for whomever is on the edge of the network, you know, in the ecotone between the intuitive network and the inside and the outside. So, and maybe that is the way to start. It's like the story of us, you know, you and me. You know, we met on Purple Space, Seth Godin's Purple Space, and I guess I just kind of showed some curiosity about you. You seem like an interesting person, and we then somehow ended up. You were interested in my work. I was interested in your work, and then that just kind of grew. It grew slowly.
I spontaneously asked you if you had time for a short Zoom conversation on a Sunday when I didn't realize it was a Sunday, and you happened to spontaneously say yes, and we recorded it, and then I broadcast it on Intuitive Public TV. So it was great.
So that happened.
It's playing on Radio Stream 1 right now. It's on rotation. People can go listen to it. Intuitive.pub/radiostream/1 It is appearing regularly. It's a great conversation.
Wow.
April 2024. This is my social memory, this architecture. I don't have functional memory in and of my human body. The intuitive network architecture is my memory. I can remember things that happen in relationship in that architecture in a way that I can't remember other things that are happening. Someone like me with this memory compromise often has an extremely low quality of life. The intuitive network architecture is completely transformative for my quality of life.
And in that way, the architecture, in describing the components of the architecture, right? So there's the Telegram component, there's the YouTube component, there are the audio stream components, and so those are just three components. I'll just focus there, and you can certainly tell me more. When you find yourself, I'm wondering that they serve as your social memories. Like I was here doing this at this time with this person, and that this helps me ground myself in space. I'm talking as you to yourself. Is that the kind of experience you have with when you talk about this is my social memory? What does that mean? What does a social memory mean to you?
We built the intuitive network architecture so that communities could be whole-bodied instead of missing parts of the community body and not knowing what to do about it and just kind of shrugging it off. So the people who are lost from community, the people who are invisible, the people who have severe neurological injuries like I have had, people who have endured intersections of invisible violence, where they can't find help anywhere. They can't find anyone who will listen to them or believe them or be in relationship with them. And this is inherently something that compounds neurological injury. Every other injury affects neurological function because the neurology connects everything. And so when a person doesn't have any social connectivity because they're in that kind of situation, it prevents them from repairing all manner of things going on with their body. It prevents them from repairing their ability to use language, their ability to communicate, certainly economic access in a variety of ways they're totally prevented from. And if there is a social memory that prioritizes their well-being, which otherwise there is not for these populations of people, to have that priority on the whole community, not just the people who are visible, the people who are managing to do things the way they're supposed to. They're like moderately successful or more successful or less successful, but at least they're not invisible. Those people need all of the other people in the community too, but they don't know what to do to embrace the whole community body because we've been taught, well, like horrible things happen to some people and there's nothing you can do. There actually is something you can do. If you build and support intuitive network architecture, you're contributing to holding a social memory that makes relationship accessible to people who are otherwise totally cut off from relationship. So on Intuitive Public TV or on Intuitive Public Radio, we have conversations that always hold the presence of people who can't be there with us, who can't reach us, people who are invisible, people who can't be in this conversation right now. We're making the media with them in mind, and we're building bridges for them to participate in every possible way, which means that the social memory we're holding in that media is social memory that they're included in. They're not omitted from the social memory. They're not invisible to the social memory. They're participating even if they can't reach us yet, because they can hear that we're talking about them and we care about them being able to access it. We're not tokenizing them. We're not saying, oh, we really care about these people while we do nothing to help them. We're actively building solutions that we know are needed because the most severely impacted people in our community say over and over again, hey, we really need this. We need people to actually pay attention to this. So at least we talk about it. At least we bring our hearts together and say, okay, there's some way to do this, even if we don't know what it is yet. And just by being present in relationship with one another, making media together where like maybe it's private group recordings or maybe it's a public broadcast, we're holding the memory in the collective body in a way that more effectively holds that memory in individual bodies, which is the only reason that I remembered those details from April 2024. I would not remember it otherwise, but you came and had a conversation with me about these intersections that really aren't talked about other places. And so that piece of media that's in our knowledge base, you know, if I found it spontaneously within the last month or so, and then I was able to get it running on Radio Stream 1, and so that reinforces the social memory, and so I can direct people back to that when, for instance, people say, well, what do you mean intuitive? Why are we calling it intuitive? Like, you're helping people to can't find help anywhere else. What does that have to do with intuitive? And I stumble across this conversation that I had with Ryan Erickson in April 2024. And it turns out in that conversation, the entire time, we're talking about things that connect directly to why it's called the intuitive network. Social memory. It's amazing. How much sense did I make? I'm really tired. You tell me.
No, that's good. That helps me. What struck me was just being in intention, that knowing that, we're here talking with just you and me, but we have these people in mind, that they're human beings who are hurting, who feel as if or who have been harmed in any number of ways and are feeling the isolation, and that our being together and being in, I don't know about in concert, but being aware, maybe that just that sense of awareness that if you're hearing this, I care about you. And that strikes me. And what else? I guess the word intuitive also comes up. That what are the other, when we think of intuition, what is the opposite of intuition? I mean, that's
being cut off from your intuition means your body does not function very well, fundamentally. Being able to listen down deep in the body is a foundational function of the body. You're not really with your own body if you're not deeply listening to your body. Your intuition is a function of listening deeply to the body, and it's not just our own individual bodies we must be deeply listening to. It is our ecosystem bodies too. We have to be listening with intention and presence to the animal body of the collective we're part of, and not just the human beings, but all the living creatures and life energies around us. It matters for us to deeply listen. And if we don't deeply listen, what we find is, for instance, that's the word I'm going for. Industry that clobbers the natural world and destroys a lot of regenerative resourcing is destroyed by industry that is not in touch with its intuitive living senses. The people in industry, the forces in industry are cut off from their own bodies, and they're cut off from the voice of the earth, or they wouldn't be able to destroy the way they destroy, because they would feel the destruction of living beings if they were really listening to the collective body. But they got cut off from it somehow. At least a lot of decision-making interests have. And then there are others who are really trying to remedy that, and it's a slog. It's hard on a lot of people. When our community members are cut off from the collective body, it's because of those kinds of interests being cut off from their intuitive senses. They're not living the body.
That those service providers, right? A service provider, and whether it's a healthcare service provider, or it's some kind of educational service provider, or whomever has learned to operate the institutional machinery, and attempt to deliver nuggets of care in the way that they've learned how to do it, and that if you fall in between the nugget names, right, whatever diagnostic code 110.52 versus 110.53, If you are close and whatever, I have to make a decision on how to treat you, right? As opposed to so that's instrumentalizing you. I mean, that's not being in a relationship. And I wonder if that and I'm thinking the opposite of intuition is that this to intuit, to feel, to be with, to sense the whole body and the body of bodies around you. That if you don't, that closed offness, I'm out, not out to it. I'm out of it, out of it. So into it or out of it. Maybe that's I don't know. I mean, it's we're kind of caught in a philosophical what does intuition mean? But when you talk about the isolation, the individualist, the I'm just in this for me. Yeah, I feel so bad for you, but it's up to you, dear Megan Elizabeth, to be responsible for yourself and to claim agency for yourself, and that if you're not getting what you need, you got to ask for what you need. You have to take responsibility. You have to. You must. It's your responsibility as a human being to take responsibility for that. Don't depend on those other people to give you care. You got to claim it. So
those things are true too, just not in a vacuum. Those things are important. Those are important things. If those things go missing, we have big problems. But if you, Ryan, are running a healthcare business or another kind of business, and you have a process, and I'm one of your community members, and I come to you and I say, Mr. Erickson, I need to let you know that there's this process you have that is poisoning people in the community. And there's a lot of suffering going on. Can we talk about how to prevent that? There's an industrial process, or there's something in a medication, or there's something in an environment, and any number of things. You can say, well, you should be doing something. I'm not any part of this. I don't have anything to do with this situation. You can bypass it, right? Or you can lean in and you can say, the people in my community are part of my body. And I want to honor the ecosystem that I'm part of by making sure that I'm not doing harm in that ecosystem, even if I didn't know that it was happening. I want to know. I'm interested to know. Maybe we could talk it out. And of course, that happens in a lot of fraught ways. Sometimes people come and say, blame, blame, blame. And they're so traumatized that they don't have another way to communicate about it. And that might put you on the defensive. It might make it very difficult for you to respond. And that's happening a lot. But when we practice presence together, when we come to the Purple Squirrel Cafe and we practice dialogue, and we practice emergent conversation, sort of discover and meet one another and know one another better, we're leaning in to the components of true relationship. We're practicing something that's about true relationship rather than a sort of a shallow layer of what seems like relationship, but doesn't have actual relationship substance. And that's the difference.
It's interesting, so there's one way to treat a person who's in pain, and if what I'm doing, if my living, my mode of living, the machinery I am operate in my life, if it's causing you harm, and you're one of my customers, you're buying something from me, and if you find you're experiencing bodily harm from it, you're having a reaction, to what I'm producing, some kind of chemical or environmental hazard, I could very well say, you can go buy from somebody else, right? Just walk down the street. I'm so sorry. You you're welcome to buy here, but I am not going to change to meet your needs, right? And it, the thing that comes to mind is the word was victim. You're not a victim. Don't be a victim.
That's such an interesting. It's so interesting. I want to let you finish though. I don't want to. I don't want to cut you
No,
off.
but the how do we? I mean, your language is it's at the same time it's there are people who are being harmed. Please come and here's an invitation to show care, right? To folks who are in these intersections of severe injury, and how do you ask for that care without victimizing them and stripping agency?
Well, I mean,
But your language is very much pro agency, and at the same time, it's saying that the word help. We were talking about the word help earlier too, and I'm wondering if that's what that brings up for you. How do you balance agency, victimhood, and what help means?
well, I mean, all of that has to happen in a true relational process,
Mm-hmm.
in a process that has relational integrity. Because if the relational integrity isn't there, we can't even make those discernments effectively. So, for instance, one of the reasons that I'm grinning a lot while you said what you said, and we are broadcasting to Upmarket Magazine too right now. One of the interesting things about what you said is that is something that people, they can come back with that kind of thing. They say, well, you can buy from someone else, like you have agency, and they're making, when that happens, they're often making certain assumptions about what a community member or customer has access to, at the same time as it's popularized across industries to develop monopolies over sales regions, for instance. Like it is a very common business practice to make it difficult or dangerous for people you want to rely on your product or service to only be able to go to you for it. And when someone is harmed, they are at a great disadvantage in being able to verbalize all of the little elements of that. And so it can be very easy to say, well, the person should they should use their agency and they should do something else. And a lot of times it's also not even about somebody who's a paying customer, because business in the world right now, and I'm still getting back some of my verbal neurology. So if you think of some of these verbal frames, let me know. Anyone watching might think of them, and I hope they will comment or reach out. Um, there's a straightforward, direct, simple kind of business where you sell me something and I give you money, and then I have the thing, right?
Yeah.
The product or the but there are also very popular forms of economic activity that are involved in, like, selling and reselling, like the housing market. Like they're not just selling a house, they're selling like futures on, like they're selling it's like the metadata gets sold and resold and resold, or like financial packages get sold and resold, like repackaged and repackaged and sold in another way and sold in another way. So there are all of these forms of business where the community is being affected by the business that is being done. They are not all necessarily people choosing to be customers of that business. They may just be in the environment that the business is leveraging in order to make money. And there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of like biometric data being sold and resold and repackaged and resold and resold. People's browsing data, people's like financial, like people's email addresses associated with their particular accounts so that a company can market stuff to them.
Yeah.
there's a huge amount of packaging and repackaging and reselling, data access, where people have no idea that they're actually the product being sold.
Yeah, but
And
if you're not paying for it, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. I mean, that's the thing, right?
What all of this is chaos unless we focus on, like, one particular flow of relationship. Like, is there relational integrity in this particular interaction or this series of interactions? And if there isn't, there might or might not be something we can do about it, except that we can focus on where we do have relational integrity. We can focus on what we accomplish together when we are communicating effectively. We are attuning with one another. We do care about and respect one another. The powers we have when we focus on that are so prodigious that all the rest of the chaos is not, it's not daunting in the same way. If we recognize what relational integrity is and we lean into that and we increase it in our environments, which is why the sessions you've been holding in the Purple Squirrel Cafe have been really, really important.
Thank you. The word integrity and relational integrity, it feels very important. And in the fact that the definition that I've come to know from integrity is just doing what you say you're going to do, being trustworthy, and qualifying that with relational integrity to be there's a subtle distinction for what so maybe that's relational versus, oh, I told you I was going to sell you this, and this is, I say it's this, and it is that when you receive it and use it, right? So that's material, maybe that's material integrity, or tangible integrity. That there's and the word, how is relational integrity different from trust? What is?
Ooh.
Yeah, so
That'll be fun.
Yeah,
I'm looking at etymology.
Maybe trust is a kind of relational integrity. So relational integrity that is, whether it's transactional or whether it's visible. I don't know.
Trustworthiness, reliability, fidelity. These are aspects of relational integrity. Integrity is the wholeness of something. So if I sell you something and I say, well, you should buy from us because we completely support you, and when you reach out to us, if you have any problem, like, we're gonna take care of it right away, and you'll be really happy, right? And then you reach out later because there was something wrong, and we're like, oh yeah, sorry, there's this loophole, and like, we don't do that. And
our process says,
say that again.
Our process says, according to our terms and conditions, I'm sorry very much.
Right. And so you have the experience of, like, somebody leaned in and said to you, I'm going to take care of you. I'm here for you. And then you gave them your money and you trusted them. And they said, I don't know, and they walk away. That is a lack of relational integrity. It's really common. And it is not possible to build trust with people or groups who do that, who do that as a matter of course, because what they say doesn't have the wholeness of the substance of the relationship they're representing in it. And it's so common now that people don't, people say, well, what do you mean by relational integrity? And I don't mean to be down on them at all. And it's a reflection of the seriousness of the whole landscape, that so many people, we don't even, what is that? And, like, if you don't know what it is, you're not going to be able to ensure that you have relational integrity in your relationships, which puts people in danger. That's how people get taken advantage of, financially and in all kinds of other ways, because they don't know what relational integrity looks like. It's like young men and women in intimate relationships who think that they know what love is. And then it turns out later that what they thought was love was someone taking advantage of them, and they didn't know the difference because they just never learned, they didn't learn the difference. And so, people don't necessarily know how to choose their interactions in a way that is fully respectful of them, because in people's environments so often they're having to just live with being treated like crap in so many ways, and that's the business landscape. The business landscape is people being treated like crap. What an opportunity for businesses to distinguish themselves with relational integrity.
Integrity in terms of being integrated, and this is, again, I think I'm getting it, beyond trustworthiness, because we have a contract. I use that's one kind of, I'm trustworthy. You can depend on me to give you what I say I'm going to give you. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's care in that package that I'm giving you. That you bought the label, but there's nothing inside the bottle, or the bottle is made of cardboard instead of being made of glass. So often, I guess the other thing that came when you're talking about that, and just peeling that word down, is that this relational integrity versus structural integrity. Because we talk about what is the structural integrity of a building. Is that building capable of withstanding a storm? Is it capable of withstanding an earthquake? Is this structure that has been built, is it capable of withstanding environmental turbulence, right? So is our relationship capable of withstanding environmental turbulence?
Right.
And maybe that's in that. And if you think about that, it's not just the you and me of it, just that the whatever interpersonal relationship, our interpersonal relationship is what it's I guess it's the environmental aspect of our relationship. Am I bringing my awareness of the whole environment and your environment into our relationship? Maybe that's what that means.
I think that's really that resonates for me a lot, because like when you reference the contract, so there are people who make contracts that are much more reflective of like what living beings need, but I think those are pretty rare. A lot of the time a contract is constructed in a way that ends up being very rigid and unforgiving, and it's determining, it's attempting, sorry, my computer did a strange thing. It's attempting to, this relevant. It's attempting to determine the relationships of living beings, and living beings aren't rigid structures. Living beings are always flowing and changing, even if they don't want to admit it, or even if it's not safe in their environment to be that way. Living beings are always shifting in some way, so that if a contract that is rigid in its understanding of an agreement is erasing or leaving out or obscuring what the lives of living beings are really like. And that's a recipe for disaster, except if you are on the how to say, if you are in the power leverage position and you're willing to push others to get what you want, you can use a contract to do it, and it can feel very successful. But if you're not in the power leverage position and you're the one getting pushed around, it can destroy your life over and over and over and over again, while other people say, well, it was successful. Well, you should have just met the terms of the contract, when the contract I think it's quite difficult to construct a contract that makes room for true relational integrity.
This
I
is
think it can be done, but I think it's difficult.
Well, I think this is what it comes down to. Um, this is the difference between a vow and a contract. I think I maybe in a session today. I don't think we weren't in the same room this morning, so I was talking about that. But it's the difference between a contract being a very specific thing. At this point in time, we are going to execute a contract. Blam. And that is, it is ironclad contract, and maybe it has some rules about this, but it has to be very specific about the kind of conditions that will happen. Whereas a marriage vow, the vow of marriage, and again, it used to be a contract. We Jewish faith had a ketubah. It is our marriage contract that we have, but we don't. I don't. There aren't terms and conditions on the marriage license. It is an acknowledgement of the uncertainty, of the fallibility, and of the who knows what the hell is going to happen in the future. And that as times change, our contexts change, and our emotions change, and our environment changes, and that since you and I are not machines that exist as we are built this way, and we are uh, powered by electricity, and it's very stable relationships. We are a mysterious spirit path that is just mysterious by nature. And there's some who would say, yes, human beings are predictable. When you put you put a very sweet marshmallow there, at some point somebody's going to eat it. More often than not. So that you get off of that, but it's about probability, right? So how do you do? And maybe this has to do with a little bit about underwriting and risk management too. About, well, the probability of you eating 50 marshmallows is not that high, but the probability of you eating one is very high. So I'm going to write into the contract in that you may not eat more than 50 marshmallows, and if you eat one, you pay me. I mean, but it's not like I vow to love, honor, and protect, or be in for good or ill. I am here to be with you. I'm committed to you, right?
It also, all of that depends so heavily on people understanding the language of the contract or the language of the vow. And language is an ever-changing thing.
Yeah.
Language, the meaning of words and the understanding of words changes. People make marriage vows on the basis of those words you just used without understanding anything about those words, or while thinking that they have an understanding of those words between one another that turns out to be completely different. And languaging in contracts, can be quite complex, but determining like what is the real meaning of that text often becomes a conflict, instead of a collaborative relationship.
It's a conflict that gets adjudicated and litigated and treated as if it were a thing. Like, our relationship is not a relationship; it's a thing to be managed and monitored, and say, you met these conditions, you violated these conditions, and you're going to be penalized for that violation. And that penalty, will be in financial terms, and I will exact that from you. And by goodness, you would think that we Homo sapiens have progressed beyond that, and that it's possible to be that we've evolved somewhat. You would think, and yet,
We're still learning from it.
yeah.
It's still a challenge we get to keep learning from.
Hmm. Hmm. What is the blood of the community body?
Blood carries oxygen and nutrients.
Yeah.
Blood probably has something to do with hydration.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
About a lot of people experience low blood volume. That's related to a bunch of the diagnoses on my list. Um, uh, Blood is like seawater. It's like the ocean.
Hmm.
Blood washes through. Lifeblood. Without the lifeblood, we're not alive. What is the lifeblood of the community? Some people would say songs and stories are the lifeblood of the community.
Hmm.
Meaning and understanding of one another. What flows between us, and then my analogies get murky then, I think, because I one of my favorite things is about how there was a point where articles started coming out, said do you know that microbes eat and shit electricity? And I was like, yes, of course they do. And then, like, all of the different ways that electricity is passed around the body, our bodies are made up of gazillions of microbes, tiny little beings having their little lives, doing their little community things. These
Huh.
processes, economic physiology, exchanging nutrients and increments and things. So the blood and like electricity and like how are we, you can see um like if the blood goes out of somebody's face, they're suddenly pale and wan, right? Or if somebody's laughing and feels really healthy, then there's more blood in the body. I don't know how to say, like, somebody's
Your
happy and
flush.
laughing, there's the
Yeah.
flush, right? So you can see there's a healthiness associated with the blood being up, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
And
And
that's like, if you're dancing, if you're sharing food, if you're telling stories, if you're working on something that activates you, and there's an electricity in that, and I don't know how to, there's the blood and there's the electricity of the body and there's the life force of the body. So yeah, that's where I'm at on that.
well, that in the again, the word body is where I'm obviously I asked about blood, where's in the community body, because the other parts of the community body, what's the musculature? How strong is the community body, right? How strong is my body? And my strength of my body is dependent on many things, because it is all these relationships that I am not me. My hand by itself, chop it off, it is not me. My whatever, my fingernail, not me. But all of these things, so that the senses are a result of many systems together. These sensors, my eyes, ears, mouth, nose, and they have parts of the skin of the body, which is what can be seen, and the breath of the body, which is the energy. How is the body energized? Is but you can't be seconds without air, right? You can't be how many days can you be without water? You can be without food a long time, water less so. In air, you can't, David Blaine, whatever, can be with it for however many minutes. Trickery, charlatan, probably. But but there's this idea of the community body, with the air of the community body. What is the air that the body breathes in order so that it may continue to survive? And what are the other nutrients that need to be around and made available for the body to thrive? And how does the body become stronger? What's the metabolism of the community body?
How much
And
of you needs to be intact for you to remember who you are? If you cut off your thumb, then remember who you. But see, like, this gets difficult, because the more parts of you cut off, the more physical trauma you've experienced, the more you do lose your memory functions. Trauma compromises memory functions and compromises neurology. People lose a sense of themselves the more they lose parts of themselves. And if you cut off the part of yourself that knows that you can survive the worst, scariest, most difficult experience, what are you doing to yourself if you cut off those parts?
And those parts from a metaphorical, conceptual perspective, like I'm cutting off this part of my cognition, or I'm cutting off.
Or our communities have been tricked
Okay. All right.
into cutting off the people in the community who are experiencing the most extreme hardships, implementing innovative solutions, and somehow surviving. They're cut off. People don't talk to them. People don't believe them. People don't build and collaborate with them. They are often tokenized. They are often taken advantage of. They are often, like used as puppets. Like, these people said this, and you believe us because we said so. But those people, we need their wisdom. We need their lived expertise. We need to learn from them, just as we need to honor our elders. We need the elders of our communities because of what they've been through and what they know, and they're part of our body. If we lose them, if we fail to honor them, if we fail to learn from them, we have lost something very significant of the collective body. And that is very much like when the people who are encountering the greatest violence and hardship and extreme conditions in our communities are made invisible, and they're cut off from dialogue, they're cut off from relationship. The community body does not remember what those people know. And so is the community body itself, if any part of the community body that experiences extremity can no longer share the learning of that extremity with the community body, what is the community body if it loses those parts? Is it whole? I say no. I say that cutting off those parts makes the rest of the community body extremely vulnerable to predation, because it doesn't remember how to recognize predation, and it doesn't remember how to implement solutions to prevent predation, because the people who do know are cut off from the community body. And then we see community bodies letting themselves be preyed upon over and over and over, and not doing anything about industries that are commoditizing the people in the community or taking advantage of the community. We want honorable businesses, right? They do exist. We need more of them.
Yeah. And yet, for those honorable businesses to exist, it's important that they purchase land in many ways. They purchase utilities from the local institutional structures, and they have currency exchange with individuals in the tangible sphere of existence, and this is you and I and all of us here, the majority of us here in the cities of the world, we live in the empire. We are part of this structure that has been built upon the industrial age here in the West. Of course, I'm complaining about the first world, right? And that it tells me to be ethical and to be conscientious and living in this, into having to transact with the institutions. I got to pay my rent, got to pay my bills, got to pay for gas in the car, got to pay. And what does it mean to be a compassionate, to have compassion, and to be an intuitive business? I wonder that. I mean, what is an intuitive business? What is a business what does a business look like that is intuitive aware, right? And how does a going concern survive and also be welcoming and cognizant of the needs of those who are invisible, right? That's a quandary that I have.
Listening and learning from the voices and signals that are most subtle is a really good intuitive practice. And that not only allows a business or a person or anyone else to grow relational integrity in their ecosystem, it also lets them notice subtle signals about predatory structures that they are having to navigate because of who has control of what and who is declaring that such and such a thing is the way to do business. And sometimes there's only so much you can do about that. Like you can't solve every problem in front of you generally. And in order to be in business, people are having to make transactions with entities that they don't feel good about. And yet, like what, people have to take care of their family. People have to do what they can to survive in order to implement any other solution. And intuitive listening, deep listening to all of the different beings and energies about a situation. So like Ryan, if you are a predatory business person that I'm having to do, sorry, I keep putting you in whatever the adverse role is.
I'm the one across from the screen from you, so I'm in the firing line, as it will.
So if you're a predatory business person, then I'm like, I'm gonna have to, like, if I don't secure this resource, there's no way for me to take care of my family. There's no way for me to stay in business. And then I have a conversation with you or a business interaction, and I know what I need, and I know that you are doing things that I don't feel good about in order to run your business. Like, you're not a monolith. You're not a single thing. You're not just like, that's the bad guy. The bad guy, whoever the bad guy is, or the bad anybody, it doesn't have to be gendered. A person is a complex living creature that has reasons that they do things. People in business do predatory things because they didn't find another way to do it, and they needed to be safe from predation themselves. And so they decided to take the power role so that they wouldn't be pummeled under. And then people get entrenched in, like, there are all kinds of reasons that people do the things they do. If you have a practice of intuitive listening, I take you out of that role now. I'm sorry about that. We have a practice of intuitive listening, not just with people that were like, well, I'm interested in this person, I'm interested in this project, like, I want to know more, I want to build a relationship. But there's also intuitive listening where, oh, there's this hardcore thing going on and it's bad, and a lot of people are suffering, and like, we've identified this person or this group as doing this bad thing. This requires intuitive listening. Because if we just pass judgment on whatever predatory thing is happening, we don't understand why it's happening, and we're much less likely to be able to do anything about it. We can do things about it when we learn more in relationship with the ecosystem where that's happening. Why are the ants taking over my kitchen? They're bad. They're just evil. The ants are evil, and they're taking over the kitchen because they're just bad and they should be decimated. We should get rid of them.
Stop them.
Guess what? I left sugar cookies on the floor and I forgot. I forgot. We were there. I forgot. Something else happened. And then the ants took over my kitchen. And I'm so offended that the ants would take over my kitchen, because that's so irresponsible. And it's violent. It's a form of violence I can't, dude, if ants are taking over the kitchen, like, I've got neurological issues that I have to navigate when moving or when walking. If there are tiny creatures moving in the kitchen, I can't stand up to get food. It's a serious problem for ants to take over my kitchen. When the ants take over my kitchen, I say to the ants, I have a feeling that you're here because of a situation that you understand and I don't. And I would really appreciate it if you wouldn't run around in the kitchen because I can't get food because I can't stand up because I get neurological effects and I get like really disoriented and I can't move my body reliably. So I have a conversation with the ants and I attune and I go, you understand things I don't understand, and I'm going to let you know how I'm feeling in case you don't realize, and maybe we can work something out. And crap, I'm the one who left the sugar cookies crumbled on the floor. I don't eat sugar cookies, but it's a good example.
Yeah.
Anything happening in the ecosystem, like we're all here part of a body together. We're all part of the ecosystem together. If we don't listen intuitively, if we don't deepen our intuitive senses in relational integrity with one another, regardless of what is going on, we're going to miss what we personally actually had to do with something that happened that we wanted to blame on somebody else. And yeah, lots of times somebody did something horrible and maybe you really didn't have anything to do with it, but we got to listen and we got to really pay attention, because if we don't, then we just end up, I blame you and you blame me, and we're in a war forever and we can bomb one another to kingdom come, and no one will ever work it out because nobody is listening for the potential of relational integrity. We had shrews here recently too. They came in because a tree had to be taken out outside, and we think that it destroyed part of their habitat, and we felt really bad but the tree was going to fall on children in a neighbor, a neighbor's children plays under the trees, and like the tree was falling down and so the tree had to be taken out. Like that was what needed to happen. But then the shrews moved into my house, and I don't do any better with shrews underfoot than I do with ants. So I and others could not get food because we have to have a steady environment to prevent neurological effects so that walking can be possible, and like moving hands and like getting food could be possible. And the shrew, the last shrew that I saw, I was in a standoff with next to the garbage can, and I said, I know that there is a reason that you are here, and I think the person who said that you came in because of the tree was out and then the grass got all killed, and the shrews like live in the grass, like they move underneath the level of the grass. Well, it all got destroyed. I'm like, I think you came in here because of that, and I really understand, and I want you and your families to thrive and be well and safe. And I can't totally control what humans will do. If y'all take over the house, humans can hurt you, and I don't want you to be hurt. And the basement door had been blocked off, and I was like, I'm going to open this for you because maybe that's your only way outside. Like I was told not to, but I was like, I'm in a standoff with the shrew by the garbage can, and I can't get food, and I have to eat on a precise schedule. I have to eat exactly right, or else I have life-threatening events that happen in my body that are really, really serious. So I have to do this right. So I have to communicate with the shrew. And I'll tell you something. That was the last conversation that I had with the shrews. They haven't been around since then. And I don't know another reason for the shrews to have suddenly not been appearing anywhere around. I mean, maybe they're still in the house somewhere, but we haven't seen them at all since that conversation. Creatures can understand one another. And you know what? Humans doing horrible things, they can sometimes understand that they can understand too. If we talk to one another respectfully and not get into the just the blame game. We need relational integrity. We need dialogue. We need deep listening. We need to stay intuitively tuned to solve any problem.
Intuitively tuned. In tuned.
I could keep going. I'm thinking of example after example after example, but
what's another example?
We do a lot of work at intersections of human trafficking. And human traffickers don't become human traffickers because they wanted to. Typically, they become human traffickers because their environments were resource deprived and they couldn't get their needs met. And the only people hiring were the predatory interests. and it caught them in a situation where like they didn't know what else to do and they had to survive somehow, and they ended up doing that work, and then they ended up doing more of that work, and then they got strong-armed into doing more of it, and they got threatened and they got treated badly. And then people doing bad stuff in realms of criminal activities, they very often they never wanted to do that in the first place.
Yeah, they didn't choose a life of crime.
And the people who are victimized by those criminal interests are not safer from the criminal interests if we just play the blame game and say, we're just going to punish them because they're just evil for no reason. They're not evil for no reason. They're part of the ecosystem too. Who left the sugar cookies out? When we just punish people, you know what happens? They get worse. They do it worse. They just do it somewhere else. And so the most vulnerable people, they're not safe from the predatory interest because this person over here says, we're going to punish them and keep them out of our community. They go out of that community, they come over here and they hurt these people instead. We have to actually bring relational integrity into our dialogic inquiries because otherwise there's no stopping the violence that's going on.
It sounds like you're talking about something that I'm not familiar with, but it rhymes with restorative justice or some distributive justice, maybe. That you're talking about.
Yes. So we've encountered some issues that I think is probably too much for me to try to tease out here, but they're good references. Restorative justice, I think, often focusing on restoring vitality, restoring the ability to live and thrive for the people having been victimized, okay, being really important. And then transformative justice, a term that has generally, I think, been used to say not only to restore the ability to live for the people being victimized, but also why did a person do a bad thing? Why did a person do harm in the first place? Why did that violence happen? To understand where that other person was coming from. There have been a lot of struggles where those terms are used. And like, it's probably a much longer conversation about why that is. But I mean, fundamentally, if we're not asking why someone finds themselves in a position to do violence and what other options do they actually have, like, is any option open to them that would allow them to be safe and not do that violence, is a really important question to ask. Because if we don't ask that question, we're making predators, we're dishonorable predators, we're forcing them into dishonorable predation if we're not asking those questions. And it's the most vulnerable, most invisible people that still bear the brunt of that when a community that has a certain amount of privilege can say, well, we're keeping them out of our spaces. But then the invisible people are still having to deal with them in their spaces. So we have to ask those questions. And the more of us who ask questions like that, the more of our communities who say, like, how do we look at the ecosystem where this is going on? Like, how are we all in relationship with this going on? Like, how can we just be with this and like recognize that we're in the body where it's happening? We have a much increased opportunity to prevent violence and predation and all kinds of things. If you're left alone with a violent perpetrator that no one will help you get away from, you end up having to really be in relationship with them.
Yeah.
You have to learn about what's going on with them. If no one is going to help you get away, you'd better learn a lot about what the signals from this person mean. And a lot of our colleagues are in those situations now because the community is dissociating from it and saying, well, this isn't my problem, but it is happening in the ecosystem.
I not that I have knowledge of it, is with this whole Stockholm syndrome thing, right? Is that it sounds like that's showing empathy for your captor, right? And that this seems much more complicated than that, or complex than that.
It's interesting because Stockholm syndrome is often mentioned in terms of it would not be appropriate to feel empathy, and of course it can be taken too far. But there's a certain amount. It's difficult because especially people experiencing trauma, and like pretty much everybody's experiencing some level of serious trauma now in the world we're in. Like trauma is really, really widespread, lots of different levels, lots of different like intensities. But the thing is that it can be very difficult for someone to hold multiple aspects or facets of a situation in their mind at the same time. And empathy for the perpetrator can be leveraged against the person really powerfully. And at the same time, if there is absolutely no empathy for that person, sometimes it's not possible to stop the violence that's occurring. And so there are multiple different parts of it. Like you have to respect yourself enough to choose for yourself rather than choosing what the perpetrator wants. But if you choose for yourself in a way that omits the experience of the perpetrator, you're not going to understand why and how that's happening for the perpetrator, which means you might really be trapped. You might not be able to think your way out of that situation if that's just like the bad, inexplicable person. Like sometimes you've got to understand what's going on in order to be able to do anything about it. And oftentimes, fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know, because some of these situations are really, really macabre. People doing violence really do need empathy. They need empathy from people who can hold their own container and not be preyed upon. But like a lot of people do violence because they're seeking a distorted version of empathy that they needed in the first place and never got. And it's not on the person being victimized to give that to them. That's not the responsibility of the person being victimized. But wow, a huge number of our colleagues are stuck in situations that the communities won't address at all.
That they're in a position where they're being harmed by someone who they're in a forced relationship with, and the person with power and exerting force is, as I'm hearing you say, that if they received a kind of empathy and a holding of space for their trauma, that relationship on the side of an outsider, right? So if I, as an outsider, were to show some kind of empathy for a perpetrator in this situation, that would potentially create a pathway out of that harmful relationship. That's what you're saying.
It can ease the traumatic intensity that the perpetrator is experiencing so that they stop putting it on the person they're victimizing. But that has to be done in a really particular way. And there are definitely ways that it can happen that can blow up in people's faces. It's not a simple thing, but the only way that we find the ways to do it right are by fully listening to people who have been through these situations. And we have a whole culture of refusing to listen to them and excusing not listening to them in all of these different ways. They're the only ones we can learn this from. They know how violence can be prevented a lot of the time. But we have to have dialogue and relational integrity in our communities in order to achieve it. So it's the first step.
And how on earth? I mean, we are way deep in the weeds. You know that. You know that, don't you? We are way deep in it, and I want to come down to some. Not that there's any completion here, but there's the sense is that there is such a web, and we're at the point of talking about, well, how do if I care about a person who's in this damaging relationship, and how would I know if I'm out here on the other side of the camera, on the other side of the house, on the other side of the block? How do I find out and make myself available to have dialogue with this person who I don't know if they're harming anybody, but they may be. So I feel like I'm not the only one in the world who has the capability to have dialogue with someone and be with their shadow, you know, and help shine some light on the shadow. But I don't know. I don't
This
I
is
don't I don't know. I don't know where to go. I don't know
not
who to look for. I don't know is so
right.
that's the industrialized certainty factor happening with it. I
It's,
wanna
it's
I don't
not
wanna I don't wanna say yes, I wanna say
necessarily.
how.
It's not necessarily a situation where one person should go talk to one other person. Often that is not the thing to do. Sometimes, sometimes people are like, yes, this is my thing to do. Sometimes people make that decision. Sometimes that's the right decision. It's not, I wouldn't necessarily recommend people think about it that way, because unless you have a really particular kind of relationship with the person already, somebody who is a perpetrator or somebody being victimized, you might have a direct relationship with somebody. It could be the right thing to do. Often it's not the right thing to do. What is always the right thing to do is to build the social fabric so that more different kinds of people who are usually cut off from social fabric have entry points to participate in the social fabric. And you're not going to be able to do that in a way that necessarily embraces everyone immediately, but you can increase the different kinds of access that are possible. You can listen to people who usually aren't listened to. You can be thinking about people who aren't making it into the social fabric at all. Intuitive network architecture, we are building for all of the people who cannot access the social fabric. We have to find ways to build more social fabric that includes more people, because when people are part of the social fabric, they are part of the ecosystem in a way that people can recognize one another, and people can access flows of energy and acknowledgement. People can participate economically, which is one of the major economic exclusion is one of the major things causing a huge amount of violence. Social isolation and economic exclusion are
Mm.
massive in this. When we build the social fabric and we say, I'm aware of this population of people who has no access to social fabric, how do we help them have social fabric that is really life affirming and flows nourishment and helps people learn to dialogue with one another and know one another better and collaborate to build solutions together? That's what people are cut off from, that results in the kinds of bad situations we're talking about. And if we're building social fabric, if we're building intuitive network architecture, we're building for those people, and we're continually listening to learn and understand more about what they need, so that we are helping them in the ways they want help, not in the ways we think that they should be helped. That's relational integrity.
Mm. Whew. I'm again, I don't want to, but I'm gonna put a pause of the 3 pauses we have left on the public version of our conversation. I'm gonna stop the video over here and go over to StreamYard for a second. So say ta-ta to the public, Megan Elizabeth.
I have one final comment. You said we were in the weeds, didn't you? Is that what you
I
said
I did
before?
say we were in the
You
weeds.
know, do you know that weeds are full of really good vitamins and nourishment? I forage weeds all the time. They're delicious. You can make a salad of them. That's my final
Weed
comment for
salad.
our YouTube broadcasts and Facebook and LinkedIn.
So
There we go.
thank you, Megan Elizabeth, for the weed salad. So we got weed salad recipe. I'm gonna put you in the corner with me in it, and I'm gonna take myself out of the Zoom room. So now Megan Elizabeth can't see me. She's kind of in the background. Thank you for watching. Thank you for coming in here and playing in our playground here at the cafe. And I'll be seeing you, and Megan Elizabeth, I'm sure, will be seeing you as well with me next Thursday and for Thursdays after that. So we're going to keep this thing going through the fall and into the winter. And that'll be a special gift. I told Megan Elizabeth. She doesn't know that yet. But see y'all. Be well, be more purple. And thank you for the precious gift of your time and attention.